So we're here for the it's the opening of the photographic exhibition of Beijing Flickers here at the Udine Far East Film Festival. And we've got the pleasure of, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Zhang Yuan. Yuan. Okay. For his exhibition Beijing Flickers. And the first question I'd like to ask is the inspiration for the exhibition comes from the film from 20 years ago, Beijing Bastards. And I just wondered what the significant kind of differences are between youth culture 20 years ago and the youth culture in Beijing, China now.
因为我在拍这个，你要用这个吗？
对，我一会儿翻译的时候。
因为我在拍这个北京杂种的时候，自己也是年轻人嘛。
When I filmed Beijing Bastard, I was a young person myself.
我还有当时的这个摇滚的这个崔健、窦唯，还有很多的都是年轻的。那么今天在准备拍这些人的时候，我现在已经老了。
And all the musicians with me, like Tang Wei, like Dou Wei, like Cui Jian, they were all young as well. But now we have become old people, old men.
是啊，所以那么我就是要看今天这些生活在北京的这个年轻人是什么样子。那么那个时候也不一样，我那时候我是85年到的北京。
And so I wanted to see how do young people now live in Beijing. At the time, things were very different. I arrived in Beijing in 1985.
那时候北京可能只有800万人。
At that time, Beijing only had 8 million inhabitants.
现在是2000万人。
Now it's 20 million.
对，所以现在北京变化很大，而且那个时候的北京呢，这个在某种程度上来讲，和纽约、和巴黎、和罗马、和这个伦敦可能是不一样的。
So the difference is very big. Besides, at that time, Beijing with big metropolis like New York, London, or even Rome had nothing in common.
那今天的北京虽然还是这个还叫做社会主义的北京，但是今天的北京实际上和纽约和伦敦没什么区别。
So now, despite the fact that Beijing is still a socialist capital, it is very similar to big cities like New York or Paris or London.
Okay. I mean, on the subject of the kind of the city itself, mentioning that it's socialist, does Mr. Yuan think that the hopes and the aspirations of the youth of contemporary China and Beijing are different to the generation from the early 80s, really?
为了这个年轻人，实际上最重要的，如果我们要用梦想这个词来说的话，对于年轻人是个奢侈品，就是一个特别奢侈的东西，因为现在年轻就是多的一些奢侈，奢侈就是
实在的那个
不是最实在的东西，就是因为对于今天的年轻人，对今天的年轻人，第一点就是他们应该怎么生存下来。
Oh, okay. So if we are talking about, if we want to use this word like dream, the problem of the youth today, their dream is to be able to survive in this society.
因为现在北京可能70%都是从全国各地来的外地人。
Perhaps 70% of youth in Beijing now is coming from from outside Beijing.
因为他们怎么样能够生活下来，这个就是第一点。
So survival is the main problem now.
对，可能有的人可能才20岁，他可能已经换过10几种工作。
People who are 20 years old now, maybe they've already changed several jobs already.
对，然后他可能没有住的地方。
Perhaps they do not have a place to live in.
也可能吃了这一顿还不知道下一顿在什么地方吃饭。
Perhaps they have money to eat today, they don't know whether next meal they will be able to have it and where and when.
所以这就是这个，如果把这些问题解决了，再谈得上梦想，
Okay.
Yeah.
So only once we have solved these basic problems, then can people devote themselves to thinking about dreams.
Okay. I mean, in terms of that very kind of, I suppose, competitive and environment that would create of people trying to survive in contemporary Beijing now, what effect has that had on, and we've mentioned music and youth culture, is obviously in places like London, New York, the music, the youth culture react against those that kind of environment, the music from punk music, say in London in the 70s, in these desperate situations. Is that something which is reflected now in the youth culture within Beijing through music, through art, through photography?
这当然了，我觉得这个例如我这个展览里边就有2个乐队，因为这个展览里边也有艺术家，也有演员，也有模特。那么，我觉得这个对于他们的影响很大。
No, you will see in the exhibition as photographs of models. There are 2 musical bands, there are actors, models, and of course the situation they live in has a big effect on their art.
这个也很自然。这个为什么说很自然呢？因为正是他们在这个艰难的生存下去以后，他们才可以真正的去面对生活，面对自己的这种感情。面对自己怎么样解决这些问题
Because they have to come to terms and to confront their fears and their problems in such a difficult situation. So they have to still be able to express themselves under such difficult circumstances.
Okay. I mean, one, I suppose, question that has to be asked, I think, to any artist, be it filmmaker, photographer, musician, on the mainland is, of course, the issue of, I suppose, the state interference in terms of censorship or kind of certain subjects and areas which are not encouraged to be openly talked about. And obviously the exhibition here, which is very striking, is it's about individuals' voices talking about their feelings, their situations. Is it still a problem I suppose in the West people think it's still a problem in China that people can't express their real kind of feelings?
这个实际上这个就是中国，这就是今天的中国。因为今天的中国，你说这个城市和纽约没有区别，但是它还是一个社会主义的城市。
Yeah, of course, China is different from other countries in that even if Beijing looks a lot like New York or London, there is still a socialist country.
那么，那你就可以想象这些年轻人有多么痛苦。
So, of course, you can think how difficult it is for these young people to express themselves.
I mean, in terms of that, I mean, we keep saying that China is a socialist country. But of course it's one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and huge amounts of money even for the affluent youth of China, albeit I know that this exhibition is not necessarily focusing on that element, but I just wonder whether Mr. Yuan thinks that can go hand in hand, socialism and fierce capitalism, money and...
我为什么要拍这些照片的原因，因为中国现在对于世界上，大家的印象就是奥运会的开幕式，中国的经济发展得很快，中国现在经济有很大的变化，中国经济现在变成一个好像所谓的强国，但是真正的年轻人他们是生活在什么地方，是一个什么样的生活，他们是一种什么人性，是一种什么感觉。这就是我为什么要拍这些图片的原因。
This is exactly the reason why I wanted to do this exhibition, because in the West we all think, when people think about China, think about the Olympic opening ceremony, they think about the economy that's growing so much, the role, the power of China internationally is becoming so big, but I wanted to show how the real people, young people live, individuals live in today's China, which is still so powerful.
I mean, I think that really strongly comes across.
对，但是
Certainly.
我能感觉很清楚，这个
因为人，这个就是因为我刚才提到了一个，就是事实上现在世界上表面上是变小了，实际上越来越小，因为交通的原因，因为这个经济的交流的原因，好像是变小了。但实际上宗教、政治还有国家之间，使这些的矛盾变得越来越不理解。实际上这个距离越来越远，越来越远。那么去怎么样能够，这就是这时候看到的这个像远东电影节、像这些展览的重要了。实际上我们需要增加了解，需要通过艺术和文化进行交流。
Because in fact, the world, on one side, the world is becoming smaller and smaller because communication and but at the same time, the relationship between religions, country, government, culture is very complicated. So that's why we need things like the Far East Film Festival. We need exhibitions like mine that try to bridge the gap to make help people to understand the complexity of the world we live in, despite the world becoming smaller and smaller. It's still very complicated.
That's wonderful. I mean, I'd just like to congratulate Mr. Yuan on that exhibition. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. 谢谢。